excited to really kick off, what is this, January 10th already? Excited, right? It's crazy. I'm excited to kick off this sort of inaugural call with one of my partners, and it happens to be lending. We're talking about money. This is the money, folks. But wanted to kick this off for 2023 because obviously in order to buy a home, unless you're paying cash, you're going to need that loan, right? You're going to need some money. So I am super, super excited to start my year off with Jessica Hastings from Total Mortgage. She's based out of Richfield, and we're kind of going to do a quick call to kind of give you some highlights around the mortgage process. I know there's a ton of chatter going on with respect to interest rates. We've been in a constant rate hike. It feels like a constant flow of rate increases over the last year. And, I know a lot of buyers have been a little freaked out about it. So wanted to talk about that and highlight that and, give you some tips, some do's and don'ts, how to prepare for a mortgage, all of that. And then, of course, if there's any questions, we invite you to comment and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And we're also going to be pinning sort of a questionnaire at the top, or sort of a checklist, I should say, to this video to allow you to be able to receive a checklist with respect to the mortgage process. But I'm going to stop talking right now, and I'm going to introduce Jessica Hastings to the call. Hey, Jessica.
Hi, Sharice. Thank you so much for having me. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jessica Hastings. I work for Total Mortgage. So Total Mortgage is actually a non-depository entity. So what that really means in English is we're a non-depository bank. We don't do checkings accounts. We don't do savings accounts, 401ks. All we do are mortgages. So I work for a bank. We are headquartered here in Connecticut in Milford, but my office is out of Richfield. I'm licensed in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and a lot of other states in the United States. It's like a roll call.
Yeah.
But I'm happy if anyone's looking outside Connecticut area, I'm happy to get in touch with you. But yeah, it's been a very, very interesting year, Sharice.
I'm sure it has. Just for everyone out there who, if you've been following me, or maybe you already know Jessica, which is awesome. But if you've been following me, I have been doing business with Jessica for the last few years, meaning my clients have, I should say. And I have an amazing partner here. She's been awesome and instrumental, piece to the home buying process. I work with good people, right? And one thing I appreciate about you, Jessica, is that you are a straight shooter. You're not one to waste anyone's time, right? So when initially a buyer is interested in starting the home buying process, it takes having a conversation, right? And one of the things I appreciate about you, Jessica, is that you're able to have those upfront conversations and really set expectations so that buyers are aware of, maybe some challenges they might have based on what you might see, or maybe, hey, this might be an easy go, right? But you're able to kind of give that information up front and kind of set the expectation. So I have worked with quite a bit of buyers who have leveraged Jessica's support, and I love, love, love the fact that Jessica delivers, right? She delivers on what she knows she can, and she gets buyers to the closing table. And most times, Total Mortgage is ready to close before, my buyers are, meaning maybe the seller has some challenges or whatever, but Jessica, you deliver. You've been delivering, and that's one of the great things that I appreciate about you.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we push on. So with everything based here in Connecticut, we can do 30-day closings, if not faster. We were the number one purchase lender in Connecticut the last couple of years, the number one Connecticut-based lender. So I'd like to say we kind of know what we're doing.
Yes, you do.
Yes. So yeah,
that's clients who have used you can certainly attest to that. So I appreciate that. But let's go ahead and talk about the obvious, which is the interest rates that we've seen. What is happening?
So essentially what's happening is the Federal Reserve, or what I call it the Fed, has been raising interest rates to combat inflation. So we all have seen at the grocery store the impacts of inflation. Same thing is happening with mortgages. So they're raising mortgage rates to hold down demand. So that's essentially what's been happening. But the positive news is once inflation comes down, so do interest rates. The economy can't sustain interest rates right now.
Mhm.
But very interesting, what I've seen historically and done some reading on is typically, historically, when interest rates come down, demand for houses goes up. So I look at it as, if you find your dream house out there and you're comfortable with the monthly payment, buy the house and then talk to your lender or talk to me about what's my plan to refinance in the future.
That's right.
Because that same house will probably cost you more money
That's right.
in 1 to 3 years when they're predicting rates are going to come back down substantially.
That's right. And so many times have I heard buyers say, especially when we were in the throes of the pandemic, and prices were, of course, on the rise. Some buyers were like, yeah, I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to wait for prices to come down and we'll get back out there, right? And then what's continued to happen is that prices continue to increase. The frenzy was still present. The need for housing was still existent. And then now we're on the other side of it where, yes, okay, we're in a different market, right?
Yep.
Things have slowed down. We've lost a lot of buyers, but interest rates are higher. So we're never really going to see, right? The leveling
and
off
prices aren't substantially different. They've stabilized. Right. They haven't, I've had so many buyers say like, oh, I'm waiting for the market to crash. I'm going to get a steal. We haven't seen that. We've just seen it stabilize. We don't see offers 100,000 over a list much more these days, but the prices are still there. So I always tell my buyers, if you find the right house and you're comfortable in the monthly payment, don't let the house go.
Don't let it go, because interest rates and the historical perspective, I mean, you can Google this information, right? You can see that interest rates never stay the same. What we saw within the last 2 years or so was historic. It was not going to remain that way, right? That was sort of a little treat that we, a lot of buyers thankfully were able to take advantage of, but it was never going to stay that way. And I think a lot of us, even realtors, because I felt bad when they started to increase and my buyers were like, oh no, I had to lock in higher. But at the end of the day, it's far better if you can afford it, as you said, if you can handle the mortgage and maintain a home, if you're financially able to do all of that. Don't be held back or discouraged by the interest rates. Right now we're in a more, and
an eighth in interest rate or quarter in interest rate, depending on your loan amount, isn't that much money. So look at the monthly payment, stop focusing on what the rate is and look at the monthly payment.
Yeah.
And then maybe look at historically, okay, what would that monthly payment be with a 4% interest rate?
Right. But the beauty is that they won't stay. When there's an opportunity to refinance, keep paying that mortgage on time. Keep paying all your bills on time. Don't get into crazy debt, but you'll be able to refinance that, when rates come down again. So you're not stuck, right? You're not.
Maybe you, instead of doing another 30-year, maybe when you refinance, you do a 25-year or 20-year. And kind of put yourself in a better situation. So there's plans out there. It's just about having that conversation and setting yourself up so you have that expectation.
Right.
And what I do for my clients is I follow their files. So if I have clients who closed this past year, I have alerts set. So when there's certain rates that hit, I know I have to reach out to them and say like, hey, it's time. I told you this time was coming.
I love it.
So what we did is here at Total, if you close with us this past year or this year, this 2023, we actually have a certificate for no lender fees for one refinance in the next 1 to 3 years.
Oh, nice.
So we kind of put our money where our mouth is. We know rates are going to come down.
Right.
So.
That's fantastic. Actually, one of the buyers that you recently helped me with in last year told me that was one of the things that he really appreciated about you, was that you saw that rates, hey, we're about to go up. So let's go ahead and lock this in. Let's get you.
I remember the buyer. I was in it
down. I think they came down a little bit. Yeah.
They came down substantially. So I was on a company trip and we were in an airport in a foreign country. And all of a sudden I got an alert that rates dropped substantially, like the largest drop in years. And I remember I was in this like airport in this corner and I called him. I'm like, hi. He's like, I'm at work. I was like, we need to lock right now. And he's like,
right now.
Sure? I'm like, oh, I'm sure. This is what the savings would be. He's like, okay, do it.
So that was amazing. And so he made sure he mentioned that to me. And I loved it. Because I will say this particular client was going to go with the big bank. And I think that's the beauty about your services, is that you kind of, you're there for the client at all. I wouldn't say all hours. Let's not say all
when
hours.
I'm awake.
Right. So you were able to capture opportunities and make sure that your clients are well taken care of. And there's a lot of value in that. I think coming from me, when I bought my first house in 2003, and at that time, the lender, I think, was in California. No offense, California, but it was a horrible experience, right? There's value in having someone that you can reach out to. You can, text friendly even, who you can get support from and not feel like you're in the dark. The worst place to be in the home buying process or selling process is in the dark about things, because it brings on so much anxiety and it just makes the experience so not present or pleasant.
Yeah, and it's the biggest purchase of your life typically. So why? Exactly. And that's the same thing I say to people who are like, oh, this attorney quoted me $100 cheaper. I'm like, it's your biggest purchase of your life. You need to go with the attorney who you're most comfortable with and is going to represent you the best. Pay $100 more. It's worth it.
Exactly. You're writing so many checks in the process of this purchase, and so what's $100, right?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, so I definitely appreciate how you took care of my client there. So in terms of the process, Jessica, walk us through what that looks like.
So the typical process, it's different for everyone. It's not the same. Some people are ready to buy, the minute they call me, they already know what house they're going to make an offer on and they're ready to go. Some people are planners. They call me January 2nd and say, 2023 is my year, I'm buying a house. So it kind of depends where you are in the process. But essentially the first step most of the time is being pre-approved. So I have an online app that our IT team developed out. You can do it on your cell phone or the phone. Essentially, it's just summarizing your information for me so I can look at it. It's correct from up front and we can figure out, okay, one, are you pre-approved for? And two, what are you comfortable with a monthly payment?
Right.
So that's essentially the first step. From there, we issue your pre-approvals, you make offers on properties. Once you have an accepted offer, your file goes in for an underwrite. The appraisal is ordered. And essentially the process goes forward until you have a clear to close. So it's really a much simpler process than the internet says it is. So my advice to buyers is stop Googling things. And just pick up the phone and call me. Talk to them.
Right.
Google's not right.
I know. I think
as
humans, like Google is like the 411. It's between Google and YouTube, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to say, Jessica, in terms of how you guys operate and just how you're able to be so efficient, right? Efficiency, having the right systems that make life easier and allows the buyers to feel like they're not stressed out. Like this process is stressful and emotional in itself. Mm-hmm. So to know that you have a lender that will, take a lot of that pressure off of you is priceless. And I know that for a fact. From me personally speaking, I know that, but also with buyers who, granted, I come across buyers who are like, listen, I have my lender, and I'm like, great. Totally. This is your call, right? This is, you're looking to buy, you make the decisions. I don't make them. I'm your guide, I'm your resource, I'm your person. But I have had buyers who come to me with their own, lender or bank, and they're not happy, they're stressed out, and they're calling me, right? Yeah. But once you get started and you're so deep in the process, it is what it is, right? Sometimes you have to let it ride out. So I know what it feels like to be emotionally spent. But when you have a failing partner, right? A failing team member, because to me, this is all a team.
It has to be, yeah.
It has to be, right? Yeah.
So some of the biggest mistakes that I see borrowers run into with other lenders, one, use Google to look up the lender. So look at the reviews, but most importantly, go to NMLS Consumer Access. You Google NMLS Consumer Access, you can look up a loan officer and see if they've had any complaints against them, any cases with states or banking departments against them. But most importantly, you can make sure they're licensed in the state that you're buying. this past weekend, I had 2 buyers reach out to me, and their lender doesn't work on weekends, which that's a whole nother thing. Don't get me started. Your lender has to work on weekends. That's when you're looking at houses. So they reached out to me and they had these generic pre-approval letters from 2 lenders that weren't even licensed in the state of Connecticut. You got to work with a lender that is licensed in the state of Connecticut, because there's certain caveats, and there's a reason the banking department makes us get licensed. So make sure you use Google for that. And then the other big tip I have for buyers is don't let your lender issue a generic pre-approval letter. Make sure your lender is issuing pre-approval letters that match your offer amount and the property address. The big reason is, say you're pre-approved for $500,000, but you're going to make an offer on a house that's $350,000 because that's what you're comfortable with. That's the monthly payment you want. Well, if a seller or seller's agent gets a pre-approval letter for $500,000, but you're only offering $350,000, essentially you're telling the buyer, I can afford more, but I'm not going to pay it. So a seller might not accept your offer. They might say, hey, they can afford a little more. Let's go back with a different number.
Yeah.
So it's all about putting your realtor in a position to negotiate the best deal for you.
That's right. That's so true. Totally agree. So even though that means, yes, if the other house doesn't work out, right, that $350,000 pre-approval letter, yeah, it's going to need to be changed. And the beauty of Jessica is she gets it done, right? In no time almost, right? It's just so, you definitely want that bargaining power. And you don't want to have all your cards on the table. So totally agree with that.
But it's just a conversation a buyer has to have with that lender up front and set an expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What kind of documents do you need up front to be able to issue that pre-approval?
So it's going to depend on how the buyer's paid. So if they're a W-2 employee, typically we're pretty smooth sailing. Last 2 W-2s, last 2 pay stubs, last 2 bank statements. It's pretty straightforward for a W-2 buyer. Wherein it gets a little hairier, a little more complicated is when a buyer is self-employed, meaning they file separate business tax returns or a Schedule C. That's when we have to look at tax returns and figure out, okay, what did you show for your gross income? But what more importantly, did you show for that net income?
Right.
Which is where a lot of self-employed borrowers struggle. So it really depends on the type of income, but most common people are W-2 employees. So it's very straightforward.
Okay, great. Great. So that information needs to be uploaded to the that link.
So we actually have a secure portal. So someone doesn't have to send it via email. They can actually upload it right to a document locker that's encrypted and everything like that. So it allows them to actually take a picture with their phone, or if they have it saved to their computer as a PDF, you can just upload it directly. Some people it's not for them. And if email is their way, or if you're going to send me a text with it in an image, more power to you. I kind of just do whatever works.
Whatever works. Yeah. Same here. Got it. How quickly are you able to generally issue pre-approvals after you've gotten everything you've needed?
Typically within an hour. Obviously, there's more complicated cases where I might have to look at K-1s and 2 years of tax returns, and that might take me a couple hours because I typically check everything manually as well as with computer systems. But yeah, typically within an hour.
So even a couple hours for the more challenging.
Yeah, as long as I'm awake. Don't try me at 3 a.m. because I'm sleeping.
I know. No. Even though sometimes I have found myself awake at 2 a.m. working on something. But yeah, no, we don't do that, folks, on a regular. But anyway, yeah, so it's really important, as long as you have all of your docs together, Jessica is ready for you. All you need is to be able to, submit what you need. And she does need to run a credit check, right? That is necessary in order to issue that pre-approval. And I know a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want you to run my credit yet. It is necessary. I mean, that as part of it, it just comes with the
exactly. I can't. Yeah. So essentially, when I pre-approve someone, I look at documents, I look at the online app, I fill out a very large application for each individual person, and then that information, I have to run it through an automated underwriting system, which is a computer program, and that'll come back and say approve eligible, refer with caution, or approve ineligible. So if I don't have that actual credit report, I can't run that software because it actually analyzes the accounts you have and risks associated with them. So it's not necessarily always the credit score.
Got it. Got it. And then you're able to proceed accordingly with either the actual pre-approval letter or some direction into, okay, here's our path to get there, right?
Exactly.
Maybe
and I
it's not
think that's the most important part, because I
right.
know sometimes people are scared to reach out to a lender because they think their credit needs a little work or they just started a job. But if you don't have that initial conversation and get direction,
Yeah,
it makes it really hard.
you'll be Googling forever.
Don't listen to Google.
And we want to get you out of the abyss of Google and get you some information, some answers, some concrete answers that give you direction. No one, last time I checked, no one wants to stay stuck, right? Yeah. So if you want to be able to move the needle just even a little bit, you'll be surprised at what a quick conversation, trust me, Jessica's not going to keep you on the phone for an hour talking about this. She's going to get through it. She's quick about it. As you can see, she can issue that pre-approval letter if you are ready, but she can also know what the issues are and the challenges might be. And then therefore have a quick conversation with you to say, okay, here's the deal. And here's what we're up against. And here's what you can do to be able to get to where you want to be, right? So it may not be a quick 3 months down the line. Maybe you'll need to wait 6 to 9 months, but at least you'll have the answers. And then you'll be like, okay, the next time I get paid, here's what I need to do. The next time, I need to pay off this or whatever. I need to increase my score. So you'll have direction and then you'll have a go forward plan, right?
Exactly. It's all about plans.
It's all about a plan, right? And this is the beginning of a new year. And buyers have, we just came out of the holiday season and folks are thinking about that next thing, right? Which is home ownership, whether it's, first time or upgrading or downgrading. So whether you're a seller, you still may need a mortgage unless you can pay cash. So you still need a plan to be able to know what you're up against, right? Whether you need to sell first and pay off that loan first in order to close on your new house, or maybe you can float both. But you'll have that direction from someone like Jessica.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes I have people call me and say, well, I filled out a questionnaire online and it said I didn't have to sell my house to buy.
What questionnaire was that?
Because they'll go to like an online website, I won't name it, and they'll just issue a pre-approval letter based on what they put in.
Oh, Jesus.
You're as good as the information that you put in, but sometimes I have to deliver that tough information. And what I tell buyers is I'd rather have you know upfront before you have an accepted offer on a property and you pay for the appraisal, you pay for the inspection, and then you get that email from the lender because they can't even call you saying, unfortunately, we can't proceed. So you got to talk to someone.
You got to talk to a human.
Is a little different.
Yeah, I think we put so much faith now in technology that we're willing to let technology tell us what to do. But at the end of the day, we're asking for a lot of money, right? So you need to be able to hear from a human that can tell you whether you are able to obtain that or not. And don't hide behind the computer, ladies and gentlemen. Talk to Jessica. Jessica can help you. So please. But anyway, as we come to a close, what would you say is the most common misconception with regard to the home buying process?
Probably that you have to have a ton of money in the bank. You don't have to have a ton of money. There's options out there. There's programs out there. So our bank, I'm lucky that we don't just have 1 or 2 products. We have our own products, but we also have investors as well. So we might have, for instance, local banks that can't fill their pipeline. So they buy loans from us. So when someone reaches out to me, I have products and programs that aren't advertised on the internet. So I hear a situation and then I can kind of think, okay, based on that, where do they fit best and where can we get them the best rate?
Great. So you don't need a ton of money, meaning 20% down. You don't have to 20% down. Yeah. You can do depending on your credit score, you can qualify for a conventional 3%.
Yeah, 3%, which is the best program out there. It's a first-time home buyer program. We actually have 3 of them right now. It depends on your income and where the house is. but the best one, you get a discounted mortgage insurance rate and a discounted interest rate. And mortgage insurance, as long as your credit score is good, is very inexpensive. I have so many buyers reach out to me like, oh, my mother said we shouldn't get mortgage insurance because it's way too much money. It's really not in all situations. So it's just about a conversation and looking at numbers.
Yeah. Be careful we tend to lean on our cousins and our parents, and then that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, because it's great to have family rallied around you when you're going through this process. But I always say, I think I'm a broken record, because I tend to say, you want to hear it from the horse's mouth. You want to hear it from the people that actually writing the check for you to buy that house. So be careful and use caution when you're taking all of that information in from your colleagues, your coworkers, and all of that. You want to make sure you're actually picking up the phone and having a conversation. Have multiple conversations if you have to, right?
Exactly.
So you mentioned something about if your credit score is good. What would you say that is around in terms of?
For a conventional loan, it's going to depend on down payments, but if you're doing the 97% financing program, I would say definitely 700, 720, 740 is top tier.
Yeah.
That's, if you're setting a target, that's your target.
Yep.
And we're not talking about Credit Karma. We're talking about the mortgage FICO.
Right.
So go to FICO.com or myFICO.com. Yeah. Do not go to Credit Karma. Credit Karma is great for one thing, monitoring your accounts.
And selling you stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they're a marketing site. That's what they are. So yeah, FICO scores, there's hundreds of scoring algorithms, but lenders use specific ones. But bottom line is, you want to get the MyFICO, pull your credit. You'll have to pay some money for that, but it's worth it. Again, you're buying a house. You're going to be writing inspection checks. You're going to be writing appraisal checks. You're going to be writing checks, right?
Yeah.
Get ready to write checks.
Exactly.
But you can afford, what is it, $30 or so for
cancel it right after.
Exactly. That's what I do, right? So that's great advice. So again, I appreciate Jessica for all that she's done and is doing for my clients. Again, I work with trusted people. Again, my reputation's on the line. So if I'm going to refer someone, it's going to be because I know they get results, and I know Jessica definitely does. And definitely appreciate you. As I mentioned at the top of this video, I am linking a request form for the mortgage checklist that we'll be providing you with to be able to get you on track for 2023. Now, if you have any questions, we are here. I will have Jessica's information pinned to this video as well. Feel free to reach out to her for information regarding the home buying process. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'm your girl. I'm happy to help. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm very text friendly, just like Jessica is. So we'll be happy to support you in any way that we can. So Jessica, thank you.
Thank you, Sharice. And happy 2023.
Happy 2023 to you too, dear. Take care.
All right. I will talk to you soon.